What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Side Guys Football Forum. I am one of your co-hosts, Number the Side, joined as always by my good friend, my good buddy, the other half of the Side Guys, Mr. Tad the Side. And Tad, don't ask me why I'm wearing an A shirt. I have no idea when the MLB season is going to start, but
does anyone? I don't even think the MLB knows when the MLB season is going to start.
It's the shirt that I just grabbed out of the closet, and
it's okay
it's
because I'm in denial with my shirt right now. Okay,
but at least yours is closer to it's closer to our podcast topic here of at least
for our podcast listeners. I'm wearing a Colts shirt because we will make the Super Bowl again eventually. I don't know.
But yeah, we obviously, there's the big weekend. The Super Bowl is happening this weekend. So obviously, we need to break down the Super Bowl, who we think is going to win. We kind of did it during the live stream towards the very end, but obviously we don't blame you if you tuned out.
If you stuck with us through those 3 hours, thank you. But no, it was hilarious. I literally got a text from a friend today being like, dude, it's like 3 days away. When are you breaking this down? I'm like, it's tonight. Relax. So this is a long time coming. So I'm very excited that we're finally getting to it.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, in case you turned in the full 3 hours or you joined in a little bit later, we did talk a little bit at the very end about our Super Bowl preview, who we think is going to win. It's very brief, obviously, towards the tail end of the Senior Bowl itself, but now we're actually going to get into it a little bit further, not super in depth, obviously, but yeah, just give you a quick preview. So Tad, let's not delay it any longer. Let's just, break it down. Who do you like in this game? What are your keys to the game? Bengals, Rams. It should be pretty fun, I think. But what are your thoughts here?
So I'm going to need some clarification on that first question. Who do I like, or who do I like to win it?
Well, give us both answers.
Okay, who do I like? I'm pulling for the Bengals 100%. If you guys, you guys are a longtime listener of the show, I'm originally from St. Louis. I despise Stan Kroenke. He is the devil in my eyes. He ripped my home team away from me. And so I will never cheer for the Rams again. I'm so glad I work for an LA-based company now. So obviously I'm pulling for the Bengals. Unfortunately, who do I like to win? It's going to be the Rams. So I will give this qualifier. I'm about to trash the Bengals a lot. Do not think that I am cheering against the Bengals. I would love to see them pull off this upset, but there's a reason it's called an upset, because there's just there are a little too many weaknesses for them to overcome, in my opinion. So let's start breaking these down, okay? I like this Bengals team. I really do, and I'm very impressed by what they did, which was basically do what they've been trying to do for the last 20 years, which was tank and then get cheap talent. So they have Jamar Chase on a cheap rookie contract. They still have T. Higgins on a cheap rookie contract. And of course, we saw this with the Seattle Seahawks and the Legion of Boom. What is the most valuable thing you can have in this game? An all-star quarterback on a rookie contract. Even if he's the first overall pick, now with that rookie salary cap in there, if you can keep him under $20 million a year, that's dangerous. And I promise you, I can almost promise you, the Bengals are going to follow that exact same roadmap that the Seahawks did. They're going to be really competitive for the next 4 or 5 years. Then Joe Burrow is going to demand the contract he rightfully deserves if he keeps up this level of play. And then they're just going to collapse, because the second you have to pay that quarterback, you can't afford talent anywhere else. And I'm going to be fascinated to see how the Chiefs handle this, but that's another discussion for the offseason. So I think that the Bengals are a really good team, but unfortunately, I think that they're just lucky, right? I think they're like a year or two ahead of schedule, because if you look at their roster, they do have talent all over the board, but their weaknesses are really, really weak. So I think if, it was next year or 2 years from now where they could address those weaknesses in free agency, because they do have the third most money in free agency going into this offseason, or the draft. I understand they're going to be kind of the latter half of the first round, but hey, that's where Lamar Jackson was drafted. So you can definitely find talent there. So and here's why. I know people are going to scream at me like, how can you say they're lucky? Have you seen that offense? Yes, I have. But that offense won 11 games. Did not win, but they played 11 games that were decided by 5 points or less. Okay? And that's including the offseason. So some of those teams that were included in those 5 points or less wins.
Postseason, I think.
Postseason. Sorry. It's 10 o'clock where I live. It's getting late. But some of those teams that are included in those 5 points or less decided games are the Bears, the Broncos, the Jaguars, and the Browns. Now, I will say, granted, that last one, sure, the Browns are a talented squad, so that's fair, but they were inconsistent at best. So what this is telling me is the fact that, again, I'm not saying they're bad, but I just don't think they're quite as the dominant team as we kind of have hyped them up to be. I think we're kind of talking about this offense as the next showing of the greatest show on turf, which I'm not. They have the potential for sure to be there, but I think we're kind of pulling the trigger a little too early there. So, well, the Bengals are certainly a talented offense. I'm really, really worried about that offensive line against the Rams pass rush. So Von Miller and Aaron Donald have had multiple sacks in this postseason, not this offseason, this postseason. And granted, yes, Aaron Donald only has a sack and a half, but technically speaking, that is multiple sacks. I'm going off that technicality. Let me have it.
That's true. Yeah.
Thank you. Do you hear that confidence in there, listeners? Like that's the co-host support I need there. So Von Miller and Aaron Donald, clearly that combination is working out really well. And let's not forget Leonard Floyd is part of this defense. And he's getting up there in age for sure, but he is still a great piece of that defense that, okay, let's say the Bengals somehow, I don't know how they would do this, especially with the offensive line, but somehow shut down Aaron Donald and Von Miller. Well, great. Now you have another first round pick that is super athletic that you need to defend on the other edge. So it's just like here's why the Rams, we were all questioning a couple months ago, but they're, bet to go all in, like just push all the chips in the middle of the table. This is where it pays off because you have so much talent on that defense and the offense. We'll get to the offense in a bit that I don't see how this offensive line that's already crap. Let's not forget that the Bengals are the first team since the NFL merger to give up 9 sacks, but still win their playoff game. Okay, again, this is what I'm talking about. Like, I feel like they kind of lucked into it, or they just kind of fell into this. And before anyone goes, how do you fall into a Super Bowl? Let's not forget the Jacksonville Jaguars had like a half decent quarterback. They would have been in the Super Bowl. Okay, and that window fell apart in like what, a year? How do they do that next year? I don't even remember. They didn't
even make the playoffs the next year. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that in case you're be like, you don't luck into the Super Bowl. Yes, you do. Okay. So that's my biggest concern with this Bengals team. And it's also important to note. So going to the Rams offense, here's why Cooper Kupp is so good, right? It's because of where the Rams put him. Notice how they don't line him up outside. So the reason you can shut down Tyreek Hill, you have a good corner, you have good safety. Tyreek Hill can operate in the slot, but not nearly as well, right? He operates best when he stretches the field. So you got to push him outside. So if you have a good safety and a good corner, you can do a fairly good job of shutting him down. Cooper Kupp, you can easily put him in the slot or outside. You can excel at either position, right? But here's the problem. You can't always put your number one corner in the slot to go on Cooper Kupp, right? You can't just put him on that because then you got your number 2 guy, get your number 3 guy on OBJ, Van Jefferson. Who's the other receiver they have that I'm forgetting?
Well, they got Odell, they got Van Jefferson, they got Cooper Kupp, Ben Skowronek, I believe how you say his last name. But
thank you. I did remember his name. I just wasn't going to try that pronunciation. So I appreciate that.
I think he's the other guy there. I think Higbee should be healthy by the time the game rolls around too. We'll so possibly. So
that's the whole thing. It's like you can't dedicate your number one guy solely to Cooper Kupp. So who are you going to put on the slot? You're going to put a linebacker on him? That you're going to get burned by him because Cooper Kupp's too fast. You're going to put a safety on him? Okay, but he's not as good in man coverage. So that's where, that kind of happens. So who are the rest of the guys in the Cincinnati secondary? You got Von Bell, who I like. You got Jesse Bates, who I also like. You got Chidobe Awuzie. Holy crap, I actually nailed that one. So you got Chidobe Awuzie, who I actually really like him. I liked him when he was Dallas. I just didn't think Dallas used him properly, but let's not lie. He's not elite talent. And let's see, who's the third guy that was doing, was he doing the gritty in the locker room? That's right. It's Eli Apple. How is this guy still in the league? He's terrible. He was celebrating like he was the MVP of the AFC Championship. Dude, they won that despite of you.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's true.
So I promise you, the Rams are going to pick on Eli Apple a lot. So, like I said, Jesse Bates, Von Bell, Chidobe Awuzie. Wow, I'm on a roll with that. They are going to be the X factors here, but I think that Rams offense is just too loaded for them. Now, let's look at the Bengals rush defense. Okay. So over the postseason, they allowed 83 yards to Josh Jacobs. Not great, not bad, right? They allowed 66 yards to Deontay Foreman. Not bad, right? They allowed it on 4 carries.
Yeah.
Guess how many? Over under 8 yards a carry for Jerick McKinnon in the AFC Championship.
I think it was probably under.
You think under?
Yeah.
It was over.
Okay.
They allowed 12 and a half yards per carry. Let me fact check you on that. Yeah, 12. Yep. 5.3, excuse me. But he had that on 12 carries. That's why I was mixing that up. But 5.3 carries. Those are MVP numbers. If you carry that throughout the season, MVP numbers for Jerick McKinnon. Okay. So the Bengals rush defense is not doing well this postseason. The only reason that they are not being the spotlight is not being shown on them more is because they are forcing other teams to pass against them so much that they have to abandon the run. So we talked about this in the past. You look at what the Rams have and Darrell Henderson, Cam Akers, and Sony Michel. I think that the combination of this stacked group of receivers combined with a good group of running backs, it's just going to be too much for the Cincinnati Bengals. Ultimately, I think that the Bengals can hang around. I don't think the Bengals are going to get killed. I think this will be a close game, but ultimately, I have the Rams winning 27-20. And God help me, because that's going to be a terrible post-Super Bowl feeling for me.
It's going to be a realistic score. I can see that for sure. But yeah, I think a lot of people are picking the Rams to sort of dominate this game. And I just don't see that happening.
They're not going to dominate.
I know you're sort of saying that the Bengals sort of lucked into the Super Bowl, but they've sort of been that sort of team of destiny that I think there's enough fight in them that they're going to make this game close. So the fact that everybody's picking the Rams to just absolutely run the Bengals out of the stadium, it's like, I just don't see that happening. I think it's going to be a lot closer. I completely agree on that one. This, though, I will say, though, I think the offense that the Rams are facing, I brought this up in the live stream as well. I think this is the more loaded offense that they have faced this entire postseason. Because you look at that first game against the Cardinals. Cardinals didn't have DeAndre Hopkins. They had to deal with Christian Kirk, AJ Green, Chase Edmonds, James Conner. Overall, just they were off in that game anyways, that the Rams could have done whatever they wanted in that thing. They clearly dominated that game. So, okay, get past there. Then they moved on to the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers had Mike Evans and Rob Gronkowski to deal with. Okay, not a ton of weapons there either. I mean, I know
not a ton of weapons. That's a top 5 offense right there.
It's not bad, but I still think that if they had Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown as well, Leonard Fournette was also not able to establish much in that game as well. Giovanni Bernard, I think, was okay. It was just like they were lacking some pieces. Like, clearly, this is an injured team that they faced. We talked about this. Sure. Tampa Bay JV, I think somebody brought it up on before. I think it might have been you, if I remember correctly. But just, it wasn't the same team that they had to face. And it's just like, I think they were able to get by there. San Francisco, my Niners in the championship game. Like, Deebo Samuel was a beast, but not in the passing game. He was a dominant runner, but besides that, like, Ayuk was shut down. Like, I mean, he was not a huge threat. Like, I mean, Jawan Jennings had a good end of the season, but, like, I mean, he was kind of irrelevant in that game. George Kittle, they usually use him in blocking now, so it's like they didn't have to worry too much about these passing weapons besides, like, maybe one guy, whereas now they're going to Cincinnati. Like I said, they have to deal with now Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, CJ Azama hopefully should be coming back, and he should be healthy for this game. But just I think they need
he's the fearsome tight end that everyone's scared of.
Hey, you know what? If you cover up all the 3 receivers, I mean, this happened a couple times during the regular season. He blew up for like 120 yards and like 2 touchdowns, I think. So it's like, it's happened. And with the biggest stage, you never know who's going to have a good game, too. So it's like you need to account for these sort of things. But I think just this passing offense is going to be a lot tougher for the Rams to deal with compared to other teams that they face this entire postseason. And then the big factor that I brought up too is just if they decide to focus on the passing game, I wonder if that makes them ignore Joe. They're not going to completely ignore Joe Mixon, obviously, but just they're not going to focus so much on the run game because they're more concerned with shutting down these passing offensive weapons that they didn't have to worry about so much in their previous games in the postseason. So this could be a good opportunity for Joe Mixon to really carve out a good, scrimmage yards or really just carve out a good game plan for the Bengals to sort of rely on. That's like, okay, let's lean more on Joe Mixon and then we'll go to the pass every so often, keep the Rams on their toes. I mean, if you look at Joe Mixon throughout this entire postseason, averaging close to 100 scrimmage yards in the entire postseason, On a technicality, it's 98.7 to be exact, but hey, we're going to round up here because it's still
put
pretty
up
good.
glasses and be like, well, actually. And you got to remember, too, that's actually pretty impressive considering that Joe Mixon was on kind of a cold streak going into the playoffs.
True.
People were like, ooh, this could be a problem spot. So, yeah, he definitely has picked it up. That's true.
But, I completely agree with you. Just this Rams defense has been on fire this entire postseason. They're only allowing 18.3 points per game this entire postseason. And the big thing, which is sort of a, opposite of, Joe Mixon having a good game, the Rams have only been allowing 54 rushing yards this entire game.
Sorry, I interrupted you, but you stole that point from me because spoiler alert for our viewers, he sent his notes in first per usual. But I was going to bring up that point exactly because I agree with you. I think Joe Mixon is the X factor here on offense for the Bengals. I don't think Joe Burrow is going to have a very good game. It's Joe Mixon. People are focusing on the wrong Joe. So, But unfortunately, exactly like what you said. So please repeat the stat that I rudely interrupted because it's me. Yeah, I think that if Joe Mixon can blow up, he's my pick for Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah, because the big thing is just just to go back to the NFC Championship game, the Rams knew that the Niners like to run the ball. That's how they build their offenses off of. So that's what they did. They held them to, I think, 51 rushing yards total. That's what limited this offense to an extent. Whereas the Bengals now, it's if you shut down Joe Mixon, it's you also now need to shut down this passing offense too. So it's you really need to be covering on all bases here. You can't just focus on one thing. So that's where I see it's if they decide to focus on the pass, maybe Joe Mixon can have a good game. If they decide to put all their cards in on Joe Mixon, maybe one of these guys in the passing offense can break out and really do some damage for this offense. Like I said, keep that game close because this offense, I think, can be very good. I understand that the pressure is going to be tough because, like I said, Von Miller, towards the end of the season, he's been really turning it up, especially in the postseason. Aaron Donald is a beast. We already know that. You already brought up Leonard Floyd, but there's other guys too. I can't remember all these guys off the top of my head, but it's they're really all chipping in on this, and that pressure front to get to opposing quarterbacks has been a lot better. And especially with Cincinnati, you already brought it up, 9 sacks, and they were still able to win the game, partially because, Ryan Tannehill throws an interception at the very end of the game, sort of gifts them that win there. Like you said, that looking into things, but just, this offensive line is susceptible to give up sacks, and if the Rams pressure is on top of things, then it's going to be a rough day for that offense. But on the flip side, though, for the Rams offense, Matthew Stafford, at times he's looked good. At times he's been prone to turnovers. And we saw this, I hate to bring this up, but once again, that championship game, he threw a crucial interception. He almost threw pretty much a game-ending interception, but unfortunately, Butterfingers Jaquaski.
I was about to say, is Troy ever going to live that down? That is his legacy right there.
He's going to live up to it for right now, but he could always make up for it. But just that's something that, he gifted in that interception practically. It was nowhere close to the receiver. So it's if something like that happens again, I see the Cincinnati defense capitalizing on that, and the big reason that they've been able to win all these postseason games, every single game, Tad, they've had multiple turnovers in postseason games, so that's a huge factor. I know you said their defense may be a little bit weaker, but that's part of the reason why they've been able to stay in these games as well. That defense has been able to force interceptions, especially at crucial times too. Obviously, you look at that Von Bell interception in overtime against the Kansas City Chiefs. They were able to march down, kick that game-winning field goal.
Clutch interception of the season.
Exactly. It's the crucial times when those turnovers cost you the most. And that was the big thing there. So if they could do that, obviously get Matt Stafford into bad situations where he's forced to sort of make these bad plays and sort of, if the pressure gets to him too much, both, the physical pressure as well as the mental pressure just gets to him too much, then these could be things that the Bengals can capitalize on. So overall, I'm just saying that this game is going to be close. I think we could both agree on that front that,
100%.
The Rams are not going to be so dominant that this is going to be over early. It's going to be a pretty close game back and forth. I think there's going to be some jitters, with the Rams obviously playing in their home stadium. They got to live up to the hype and all that stuff. There may be a little bit, they may start slow, obviously, so we'll see if they can adjust, things like that. So I expect it to go back and forth, but I don't know. My gut feeling is saying I like this team of destiny with the Bengals, and I'm sort of riding with them. Obviously, I'm pulling for the Bengals, But, I think the Rams can obviously pull it out. Like I said, I got both ways, but just like I said, I think something's telling me in my gut that Joe Burrow, he's, Evan McPherson, like just they have these things going on for them. It's
I love
just
the kicker is the second guy you name.
Yeah, because he's been so clutch for them.
Not T. Higgins, not Tyler Boyd. It's Evan McPherson.
You can't not talk about this guy this postseason. Like, I mean, he's been
people.
absolutely clutch for them. So it's like he's going to be a factor in this game. And that's how I actually see the final score going in that direction, because he's going to come up with a couple huge kicks again. So, like I said, I'm riding with this sort of team of destiny with the Cincinnati Bengals. I think they'll pull off the upset. But yeah, I think it could go either way. But yeah, my final score prediction is I got the Cincinnati Bengals 23, the Los Angeles Rams 20. So I think it's going to be a pretty close game.
Is that McPherson, like, final second field goal you got there?
I don't think it's going to be a final second field goal. I think they're going to take the lead, and the Rams are going to have a chance to catch up and possibly either tie it or take the lead. But just unfortunately, they're just going to fall a little bit short.
Oh, God.
So that's what I see.
Keep going. That's what I like to hear.
So that's actually what I see happening. But you never know. Like I said, he's done it before in a couple other postseason games. So it
yes,
could be.
You did too. Yes.
I caught my own mistake though.
Yeah, it's also 2 hours earlier your time.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So, yeah, I think Evan McPherson is going to play a crucial role in this game as well. So, but yeah, I'm anticipating a better game than a lot of people are predicting. Like I said, a lot of people are just predicting this game to be an absolute blowout by the Rams.
No.
The Bengals are not going to have a chance, which I just don't see. Just like I said, there's something in this team that the Bengals are doing. That there's something in this Bengals team that I just see that's just like, yeah, they got some magic on them.
My concern was actually both of our scores were too low. That, like, I could see this turning into like a big time shootout.
It very well could be too.
Hey, unless there's an injury, oh man, this statement is probably gonna haunt me. Unless there's an injury, the Bengals are absolutely not gonna get blown out.
Okay, all right.
I am not making a bet on that.
Yeah, you better not.
No.
But speaking of bets, we definitely have our podcast episode happening later this weekend. Tad is going to break down Super Bowl prop bets and also some game lines and some money bets and everything along later to that. We probably have some more stuff in store for the podcast, so make sure you tune into that. Best way you can find out about when our podcast episode and all future episodes are happening with the Side Guys Football Forum. All of the Twitter handles you see at the ticker down below. You got my personal handle, @theside23. You got Tad's @TadTheSide94. You got the show handle, @DeSide Guys. So, interact with us. We just did the live stream, so that was broadcast on our Twitter handle. We obviously did it with the LAFB network handles as well on their YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter as well. But just, yeah, you're always going to be up to date about the latest and greatest that's happening with our show. Obviously, hit subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast, whether it's Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, right on the LAFB Network website. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, obviously. We have our own playlist, so you're always up to date about when those latest videos are dropping as well, especially with off-season content coming. We may have some, we may hopefully get some guests on for some, football talk, obviously. The free agency is coming up. Draft talk, obviously. We're hoping to collaborate more with the Draft is in Session guys. We had a lot of fun with those guys, so hopefully bring them on to our podcast to talk some more draft stuff, obviously. All the coaching hires have been placed, so obviously we're going to do our head coaching deep dives like we did last season. So
I can't wait for that Lovie Smith deep dive. That's going to be
that's going to be an interesting one. That's going to be
so good.
One. But yeah, we got a lot of stuff planned for you guys, and really we just can't thank you enough for, watching us, listening to us, giving us a good rating, subscribing to us, interacting with us Twitter. I mean, seriously guys, like we just can't thank you enough.
Yep, like Amir said, definitely tune in for our next episode for our podcast because, hey, Cooper Kupp over under 5 receptions. T. Higgins over under touchdown and a half. That's all good and great. But you know who is the one psycho in the world who's actually going to do research on what color Gatorade gets dumps on the coach? Will the national anthem be over or under 1:30? This guy right here. So if you want those weird prop bets where you can actually make a killing because those odds are pretty good, be sure to tune in for our next podcast because, guys, I'm not kidding. Like, I actually do research on this. Like last year, I haven't done it yet, I will admit, but last year I forgot who's saying it, but I watched like 10 of her YouTube videos of every time she sang the national, not just saying her songs, right? Because you can't do songs.
Yeah.
But
different.
I watched every time they did like a national anthem at like a baseball game or something, and I timed it. I was like, okay, and I took notes. All right. So if you need good research prop bets, Tune in for our next podcast. Like Amir said, we have awesome draft stuff coming up. If you haven't already, if you want to know our analysis of the Senior Bowl, we mentioned at the very beginning of the episode, you can go back on the LAFB network YouTube. We had the entire live stream recorded there that you can go back and look at. We reacted to, live plays as they were happening. Not enough so we get sued, luckily. We also broke down a ton of stuff. Who are the Giants?
A lot of great draft content.
I could go through all of it, but this video is going to go for another 10 minutes if I did that. So be sure to check that out if you want our Senior Bowl analysis. And, speaking of the LAFB YouTube and, just the company in general, I really appreciate, Ryan Dairu, the CEO, who, by the way, is on Radio Row right now at the Super Bowl.
We got a lot of guys out there in Radio Row. Actually, Will and Jamal from the podcast are there. Ryan Dairu is out there. Another one of the former guests of ours, Ryan Anderson's out there. So, we got you covered on Radio Row for the Super Bowl. LAFB Network's got you covered.
Yeah, so we have a lot of great content there, and they trusted us to go live with our YouTube channel. I don't know why, but they did, and it went pretty well. So this is the kind of trust they put in us. So guys, please pay back that trust. Check out LAFB Network. Like we said, they're doing awesome stuff on Radio Row. They interviewed a Rams legend. I will not say who, because you got to go to their YouTube and the podcast, just like us. You can find them on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and what's the one I'm forgetting, Amber?
Google Podcasts. There's a lot of platforms.
Basically, anywhere you can find your podcast, that's where you're going to find them. It's not like Joe Rogan. Hello. Anyway. So thank you again to LAFB Network. And guys, thank you so much for listening and watching. And yes, be sure to tune in for our Super Bowl bets and another surprise segment coming up in a couple days.